Get in your crouching positions.
Work on those glutes.
Hey everybody!
Welcome to this week's episode of the Epic Hour.
Yes, this is going to be an interesting one. Lots of people ask all the questions on negotiating. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong side. And it's always an interesting topic to discuss because I think one of the big things to keep in mind is it's a skill. And yes, you can train to learn it, but there are aspects of it that I really feel some people have and some people don't. Definitely you can improve on it, but there are definitely those that are just natural born negotiators, right? So a prime example of a natural born negotiator would be usually your 3, 4, or 5-year-old child. They typically know exactly what they want and they're going to do whatever they need to get it. As an example of a natural negotiator. Anyways, so some of the things we're going to cover off is some of the discussion on how to be an epic negotiator, what sets us apart from others, finding out all different kinds of angles to come in at with negotiations with different, whether you're doing negotiations with an investor or whether you're doing negotiations with a property or a product. We're going to talk about who brings the first number to the negotiations, and the true answer is it depends, but there is kind of a caveat there. Provide negotiation tips for other real estate investors. And then we're also gonna, who makes the final decision, us or them? And then discuss how getting creative in the negotiation can help both sides. Talk about how to handle sellers who are emotionally attached to their property. That is, yes, that's a big one. Yeah, the lighting here, we're just noticing is we're kind of in and out. I'm thinking if we just tilt this, then it won't draw so much to the side. Go this way. Yeah, we'll just go back. Sorry, guys. We're just, this is what happens when we take the road or show on the road, right? I think that'll work. It doesn't seem to be going in and out. There we go. We're not vampires any longer. In the shadows, in the light, in the shadows. Anyways. So I guess one of the reasons we picked the property we're in is because it was a unique negotiation and strategy to put this opportunity together. And again, like I said, Rochelle does the big time does the negotiations with the investors, putting that side together. And I typically now am doing a lot more of the negotiations for the buying of the properties. So it's a unique thing. And I don't think there's a be all end all. One, if you can't talk to people, you're never going to be able to be a negotiator. So you need to put yourself in situations.
Slow down there. Lots of people talk to people, but if you're not willing to communicate, as in talk, then listen.
Yeah,
because lots of people talk.
Yes, true. Yeah. So again, it goes back to, we've discussed this before on other epic hours. There's a reason the universe, God, whoever you look up to, gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Gotta listen. It's really a big one. At the same time, though, you got to be sociable. You got to be able to figure out, again, figuring out people is one of the biggest things when it comes to negotiating. So if you're sitting down with someone and you're going to go in and talk to them on numbers, and they are of a wired a way where numbers mean almost nothing to them, you've lost them before you even started. So number one, you need to figure out who it is you're talking to. So that's where I was going back to about talking to people. It's called rapport. Figuring out that person. Rochelle and I do it so naturally and it comes very easy to us. Again, some of that came from the training. We've talked about it before with the DISCs training, and also we've taken, actually bank training is the big one we've taken. And, you know, and those are really critical for figuring people out. And I don't mean that in a dirty or nasty way. I mean that in, if you talk to someone in the same verbiage they're going to use, there's a greater opportunity that what you're trying to get across will land and actually sink in. Okay. So that is huge. Okay. So I would put that number one for me anyways, when it comes to negotiations, is honestly figuring out what kind of person it is you're talking to. So again, the quick banks that we love is bank stands for a blueprint. So that's someone who's, you better not be late, because their mind is going to get blown if you're not like somebody who's always on time and all those things. And they're very orderly, they can't handle chaos very good. They don't make great entrepreneurs. And then you have A, which is your action people. Again, action people are those that Rochelle is one, and they are typically the ones where they only need about 70% of the information and they're in. They're good. They got enough. They're ready to go. They'll get the rest of the answers as they go, right? Nurturers, that's N. And that is me. That's my first one. Yes. So I'm a good storyteller. I kind of care about your feelings. I do deep down want everybody to get along, but I've honed and changed it so it's beneficial to me. And it took time. It took studying myself, and it took, working on lots of self-development so that I could figure out the strengths of being a nurturer, but also the weaknesses, so that the weaknesses didn't hold me back, right? Luckily, my second attribute is action. And that allows me to be, yes, I'm into stories, and yes, I have a high energy for people's emotions. But with that being said, I still don't need the entire story told to me to know I'm in, right? So I can be very decisive and make decisions, even though I'm an emotional nurturer. So, and then K is knowledge. It's honestly, these are the people that usually drive you nuts. They're the ones that sit there and go, but why? Why? So just imagine a 2-year-old.
They need the graphs,
and then the charts
and the studies,
yeah,
and the proof,
yeah,
and the why.
Yeah. It goes on and on
so
and on.
This is where, for us, when we look at somebody or have a meeting with somebody, if they're straight up BK, blueprint knowledge, I guarantee you, I am not going to get through a conversation with you. I'm going to kick you off the phone within 5 minutes, because you are not my people.
Yeah. Typically, that we have, maybe, do we even have one that's a client? We might have one.
Maybe one might have slipped through for some reason, but really it would have to be, if you're a blueprint, your next trait is going to have to be action. Because, or if you're a knowledge, the second attribute is going to have to be action, because you at least have enough gumption to say, okay, I have faith that this is going to happen, right? And so, but if somebody's a straight KB or BK, that won't even, like, I'm going to talk so fast for them, like the way I do talk fast, but it'll be too much. It'll be like an energetic disconnect. It just won't work. So so just know who your audience is and who you're talking to.
And again, you can actually look that course up online, and whether you decide to take it or not is another one. So now, once you know who it is you're talking to and negotiating with, everybody usually wants to cut right to numbers or those kinds of things. I really like to, again, nurturer, I like to hear the story. Okay, where are you coming from? Why are you looking at selling this property? What are all the things that are going on in their life? Okay, and the reason is 9 times out of 10, when they talk to me, I'm going to hear, usually they'll even tell me how much they're looking to get for the property, and they're going to tell me how fast they need it gone and why, or how long they feel it'll take, or what's irritating them about the situation. So I'll give you an example of an irritation. An estate house. You're dealing with an estate house, and tons of people have to do this. It's still doing that light dark. Okay. Does it? Okay. Then it just must be this one. Woo! We got struck by lightning there. Woo! Anyways, the dealing with an estate house, a lot of times people have stuff. There is stuff in there. The person has accumulated. We all accumulate stuff, most of us, right? It's a thing. Whether you have 5 items of stuff or 5,000 items of stuff, you still have stuff, okay? And so a lot of families will get overwhelmed trying to deal with the stuff, okay? Because they don't have the heart to throw it away if it should be thrown away, or give it away to a community group, or all those things.
And just the organizing, like thinking about, what do I keep? what is okay to get rid of? Is
Yeah.
there value? Who's going to take it? Like,
Yeah.
it's just a lot.
Yeah.
And you're already dealing with the loss of a loved one.
So we'll come in, and that's one of the things we'll offer to people and say, take what you want, leave everything else. That, don't worry about it. And the amount of houses we have gotten just because of that conversation, and it didn't, the money wasn't a thing. They weren't like, oh, okay, well, great, you're gonna pay me, but you're gonna deal with the stuff. Amazing. They were just like blown away. They were just like, thank you. You're my savior. It's amazing. Thank you. You've answered all my questions, right? And it's true. Like when we come in, we have so many contacts all the way down to, I mean, I can use silverware as an example. We know one lady who actually takes old silverware and turns it into jewelry. And so when we have silverware in houses, I just call her and say, hey, do you want this silverware? And she will come, and she always tries to pay me. And I'm like, no, you drove here, just take it. She's a really nice lady. So, but I mean, so that's an example out of like, I mean, geez, we had one house that had the one on Avenue V there had all the taxidermy animals, and the family was like, we're not exactly sure what to do with the, so like, there's all these kinds of things that can pop up, and yet they don't want them to just necessarily go in the garbage. And so when I was talking to them, I said, well, honestly, phone a few outfitters up north. I said, they're always looking for horns and antlers and stuffed animals for display for their cabins and for those kinds of things. And sure, they got rid of all of it just by making those phone calls. They even had a beaver, and I said, well, phone Scouts Canada, because they have they're always same thing. They'll take beavers and stuff for their program, right? And so, it's just that, it's kind of, and that's networking at its finest, right? You've talked to somebody, you've had that conversation. Oh, what do you do? Who are you? And then it's like, boom, they pop into my head just like that. It's like, oh, that person, this situation, that situation, right? So again, that's an example of a negotiation. I think everybody kind of, when it comes to buying real estate, they get, here's my offer to purchase, right? They get that in front of them, and that's it. They got to go by those lines. They got to go by those, fill in the blanks. And it's like, yeah, but there's a couple of parts called terms and conditions. And you know what? You can write anything in the terms and conditions as long as two parties will agree to it. And we have done it over and over and over and over. So
it's the same with getting a property for $1 deposit.
Yep.
How many times people say that doesn't happen? Nobody will ever say yes to that. Like, yeah, if that's your mindset, then I believe that will be your result. Did you try it though?
Honestly, most of our private deals, it's $1. Almost always it's $1.
And there's reasons for that. One, we usually have quick possessions. So we're literally going to be they're going to get the rest of the money in like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So what does it matter if they have $1,000 sitting there or $1? It's just, again, a lot of people don't even understand what is the deposit?
Yes.
Why do you even need a deposit? Why does it even have to be $1? Why can't it be $0? Well, in order for a legally binding contract, at least $1 has to exchange hands in order to make it concrete.
And we're not even joking. I keep a roll of loonies in my office in a cabinet, and my assistant, like when I go and I make these loony opportunities, she's usually the one that's running around.
Loony opportunity. I like
it. There you go. Let's add her finest unfiltered moment. And then in these, she runs around and she makes sure everybody gets their loonies, right, for these contracts. And I literally, I'm not kidding you, I have a roll of loonies or a stack of loonies sitting in my cabinet there just because we buy so many houses for $1 down. And and again, here's the other thing of negotiations I don't think gets talked about enough. The biggest thing with negotiations is 9 times out of 10, it is an education moment. Okay. Rochelle exactly touched on that. What is the deposit? What is it actually all about? Well, the deposit is it's an amount that holds you to the contract stating you are going to do your thing.
It's basically good earnest money.
There you go.
It means you're serious. You're stepping up. So
go ahead.
I was going to say, it's interesting though, this mindset, because if you put a deposit and you still have conditions on a property, The deposit means nothing. The deposit only matters when it's a final sale with no conditions. So again, when people are like, it's conditionally accepted, that means nothing. That's not a firm sale. So in theory, if you had an accepted offer and you paid a $10,000 deposit, and at the end of the day, that deposit basically, or sorry, the conditions are removed, and then somebody has paid you a $10,000 deposit, and then they back out of the deal, then in theory, you should keep the deposit. But do you actually know the success rate of people actually keeping a deposit? It turns into a pissing contest between the lawyers and the realtors and everything. And generally, people just end up giving the deposit back. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's, I think people are delusional if they think that the deposit actually really means anything.
It honestly comes down to that's why the education factor for negotiations is so big, because we sit down and educate with people. Hey, we're Epic Alliance, we have over 400 houses, we want your property, we need the inventory, we are not walking away from this. There is no reason for us to walk away from this. It's also why we we close quickly so that it isn't a thing. We've done things. Here's another negotiation tactic we've done in the past where they're heck bent on, they need a $5,000 deposit. Like when we're dealing on MLS and we're dealing with realtors, because there are some realtors that have it in their head, if they get that big deposit, it's a locked in deal, right? And again, we're like, that's not a thing until conditions are removed, right? So we've done things to try and educate realtors where it's like, fine, you want your $5,000 deposit, it'll work like this. We're going to give you $1,000 now, and then upon conditions being removed, we'll give you the other $4,000.
And this would be in a case where right now, again, because of the COVID thing, a lot of people were like, I don't want people in my house, whatever. And so until they had a firm offer with said deposit, they wouldn't even let people into the house. So Alyssa was writing dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of offers. Yeah. Basically, it's like, what are the conditions on those ones?
For which, the one where we put the deposit later?
Yeah.
Usually it's...
No, the getting into it.
So yeah. So what we do with getting into them is it's literally that we make the offer, and we're honestly almost every single house that we're offering on, it's upon viewing. And then that's one of the conditions is subject to viewing. I have to see it, but here's where our starting point is. And again, what's cool? When you get to the hundreds of houses we have, you have your own comps. I already can go in and I know, okay, in Meadow Green, I'm looking at a 3-bed, 2-bath, and it's 900 square feet. What have I already bought that's that size, and what did I pay for it? Okay. And then it allows me to roughly know where my starting place is. So once I've gotten that, then I can turn around, I write the offer subject to viewing. And usually we make that within 3 days or 2 days, right? Because I don't have time to goof around. And right now, it was such a big deal with COVID, was like Rochelle said, nobody was letting you into the house unless you put an offer in front of them. I was like, fine, it's not a big deal. Write the offer. Who cares then? But just put subject to viewing. And then if you get there and you go, damn, out of all the ones I did, there was one house where I went, yeah, I'm not paying this, because the pictures, they had deceived in the pictures. They had taken pictures from like years before. And then you go and it was like, yeah, these pictures were all done before the tenants moved in. Yeah, no, I'm not paying this, right? Otherwise, most of the time, my price I've gone in at, it's either what I end up paying or maybe a hair more, right? And so that's a huge one. Know your price points. And we literally are so good on the west side of Saskatoon. I can tell you block by block what I will pay for a house. I know block by block what I can pay and what it'll appraise at in Saskatoon, right? So, and this is something that comes from you viewing properties, looking what they sold for, and what other people will buy them for, right? So it's once you kind of get familiar with those numbers, and then here in Saskatoon, we really use the tax assessments as part of that analogy, right? But it ultimately, when you start viewing thousands of houses, it gets easy and quick to figure out, like the people I work with, the realtors, when I go to look at a house, they know I need 5 to 7 minutes in a property. That's it. and they know it's either a yes or no in that moment. So it's a big help. Oh, what do we got? Okay, I've got Lord Prahan, forgive me if that's wrong. How does a property find a tenant? Okay. I'm kind of confused.
Well, property doesn't find a tenant, but
We
do
do.
you mean how do you find a tenant for a property?
Yeah. If you're, how do you find a tenant for a property? There's many ways. Okay. Honestly, your big one right now, and I think this doesn't matter what group it is that you rent to, is social media. It is huge. We started our own Facebook page for EA properties, and we turned around and I'm getting it. Look, I wasn't supposed to say that.
Nope.
Sorry.
You broke your or no rule.
Yeah, sorry. Our property management company. But anyways, whatever. The way we do this is it's social media. We started a Facebook page, and it's amazing how many calls, how many messages we get off that just from people. So if I were you and you only have a few properties, don't bother starting your own page. There will be groups where you can post your property. That's probably number one. Ironically, Kijiji is still a big one for us too. We just have a generic post saying, hey, I have rental properties, contact us, blah, blah, blah. So that's a big one. And word of mouth. Honestly, we're now so big that family members send other family members for the tenants. Like you'll get a mom that'll send a daughter, or a sister that'll send her, that kind of thing, or a mom that'll send daughters, or a son, or whatever.
You generally are who you hang with.
Yeah.
So if you are renting and you're a good tenant, chances are you're going to know other people who are renting and are also going to be good tenants. What's interesting there is we do not incentivize our tenants at all for that. And the reason for us not doing that is because we have a lot of low income tenants. And if they were just chasing a referral fee, they might not give a shit as to vetting the person they're putting in touch with us. Yet sometimes I know other landlords who incentivize their current tenants to tell them about other people. So different strategies depending on where you're at and who you are. You just got to figure out what works best for you. But yeah, Kijiji and then Facebook buy and sells for the rent pages. There's so many platforms right now. And there's also other ones that are more like paid by subscription. I can't remember exactly which ones because they're not relevant to us because we wouldn't pay for that and we're in Saskatoon. But if you're in a larger metropolitan area, then it might make more sense to go out and research where you could be listing to get better quality tenants. There's also another question here. So how are you dealing with the COVID non-payment? So I'm going to suggest that you actually go back. I think it's on our website. We did an entire Epic hour just about renting properties. So I don't want to rehash all that for our loyal people who are actually following us week to week and getting new content. So I'll get the girls to try and find the link and we'll put it in the chat box here and put that on Instagram too.
All these questions are there.
Yeah.
We'll go back to negotiations.
Yeah.
So another thing with negotiations is don't be emotional. Don't get emotionally involved in your negotiation. You may look at this property and go, oh, it's great. I like it. It's really fantastic. Know your number and then don't go beyond it.
Yeah, stick.
Yeah. We had one house where Rochelle broke that cardinal rule because she just needed to have it. And when you have hundreds of houses, you can kind of shift.
We still made $75,000 on that property. I knew we had margins settled down.
I know we did well, but all I heard was, I don't care what it costs, buy that house.
Yeah. Honestly, we should have gotten the house for $130, but I said, you know what? We looked at it. It was just had so much character. I knew we were going to add an extra bedroom, which would, get an extra 30 grand in profit, blah, 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 blah. It was just whatever. But yeah, I went home that night and I couldn't not get the stupid house on my head. And I was like, go back and get it. If you need to pay $150, pay $150. I don't care. So yeah, so I was very emotional about that house, but I knew we were going to make a killing on it. So it didn't really matter.
And it turned out to be an amazing Airbnb.
So that's the crazy house. So that's our wild and zany character home. So we did the 4 themed bedrooms. We did a tour there before. So again, that was on another Epic hour, but yeah, so lots of fun things. And actually we just got another Airbnb and it's 2 suites. Alyssa had found this. I didn't even look at it. Alyssa bought it and was like, here, you can have it for an Airbnb. It was like, awesome. So I went through and so the upstairs, I'm actually doing like a Parisian vibe. So like kind of like Disney Paris and Eiffel Tower stuff and design and whatnot. So that's fun. And then the basement's actually gonna be like African Serengeti. So again, not like it's going to be super cheesy and whatnot. It's just tasteful decor. But that's where I get my inspiration. I usually find one piece and then I'm like, boom. And then the whole, a design comes together. So that's the fun side for me.
Great. And I mean, again, all of these properties that we buy, there's literally every single one of them has their own story. And it comes down to, and I'm working with the realtors nonstop, and they'll come back at me, they'll kind of give me some info. And again, when COVID hit and we were purchasing properties, well, first COVID hit, and then it was like, if nobody moves, nobody gets hurt, right? The world turned into a giant union. If you're unionized, you'll get the joke. It's kind of funny. But anyways, it's their joke. Nobody moves, nobody gets hurt. Anyways, and so I was like, I need inventory. I can't wait for the world to get back to normal. So
not to mention that was also during the time we were doing the 50 house of free landlord houses in 60 days. And I was like, Alyssa, go buy houses. So yeah, no pressure.
So I ended up going back and I said to the realtors, I said, here's what you're going to offer them. You're going to go to them. You're going to do a price based on, I'm going to buy it and they're going to leave like at this price, and then a slightly lower price, but they get to stay in the property for 30 days. And all they're doing is paying utilities. So we're literally taking possession because we needed inventory, and we allowed them to stay in the property for 30 days. And all they had to do was keep the utilities in their names until they left. And then what you do, again, this is why the contracts are awesome with the conditions and terms, is we just had a holdback of $5,000 until they moved out. So most people want their $5,000, they're going to move out, right? I have never had, knock on wood, no one has ever taken advantage or tried to take advantage of it because of the holdback. It's the same thing we do. Here's a great negotiation. We buy a lot of properties that are tenanted, and you know what's number one? We do a $5,000 holdback until the tenants will sign our lease. Because when you take over a property and you're negotiating on that, 9 times out of 10, when someone is selling a property and there's tenants in there and they're problematic, they're looking to get rid of that property because they can't handle the tenants anymore. So number one, make sure, and you know what? I've had like 4 of them that their leases were verbal. I'm like,
what a nightmare.
Right? Talk about a bad negotiation. Do not do things verbally. I don't care if you take a piece of paper and you scrap write things and you both sign it. That is still better in a negotiation than a handshake and a wink, wink, and this is going to happen. Don't do that ever. Okay? Like I said, and I don't care if it's your mother. You make sure there's something written down.
Oh, and for the love of God, don't rent to family members. Please don't rent to family members. We know so many people who have been stuck with this. Oh, but it'll be really great. They're family. Yes, which means they don't give a shit about boundaries. They don't care that you're their landlord because first off, you're their mother or their brother or their uncle or the whatever. Don't rent a family, guys. Don't. Yeah.
So again, in negotiations of buying a rental property with tenants, number one, you negotiate that you are going to have your lease signed before you will take over that property, or there's a $5,000 holdback. Because you know what? If those tenants don't leave and there's no lease signed, it's a he said, she said, and we learned that one the hard way.
So tenancy board was always going to side with the tenants. Even in Saskatchewan, where we're not as hardcore as Ontario or BC, it's still always pro-tenant.
Yeah. And so another great negotiation tip is, again, they can bring things to the table too to make the property where you need it to be at. So this brings us to the property we're in, okay? This particular property is a large duplex with many bedrooms, and we are actually converting it into a boarding house. And we're super excited because we've already we've already got the plans for it. It actually sounds like it's going to be a boarding house for those that come out of correction centers, and we're super excited for that. So what happened with this property is somebody had owned it. It was a really big property, And they built it, and they then tried to rent it. Couldn't handle the people in the area, couldn't handle the tenants they kept getting, and it ended up boarded up. So
multiple times, because they would get tenants in, then they would trash the place, then he'd board the house up, then he'd come back and fix it.
Yes.
Then again, he didn't know how to rent to tenants, and this is right in the core. So if you're going to be in the core in Saskatoon, it's the Pleasant Hill neighborhood, you have to understand the mentality of the tenants. You have to understand how to rent to them. And the house is massive. So how many, so before the basement, how many bedrooms do we have up here?
4.
Yeah, so it was 4 bedrooms, and
One.
yeah, and then one,
No, 3 up, 1 on the main is 4.
yeah, so 4 bedrooms, but I think it's, isn't it
And then
3 bathrooms or 2 bathrooms?
There's 2 bathrooms up and 1 on the main, and now we have 1 in the.
Yeah, so 2.5, so 4 bed, 2.5 bath house in the core.
Mhm.
Okay, so our rule in the core, 1 toilet, 1 bathroom. You give them any more, they're gonna wreck them all, so none of them will be working. You give them 1, they'll keep that 1 working.
And it works like clockwork.
We've literally removed bathrooms before.
Mhm.
And, you know, again, some people are like, why would you ever do that? Because we're in the core.
Mhm.
It's a mentality thing. And they just, people live differently than we do. I'm not judging. It just is what it is. And we pivoted and adapted. So for this house, it was just too much house. And in order to make the rent that he wanted, you had to put in a lot of bodies. Well, when you have more bodies, what's the likelihood that things are going to go wrong?
Yeah. Kept going to gang members. Kept happening to the poor gentleman.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening and being negotiated was we didn't have the time to fix a project this big, finish the basement, and add the bedrooms and bathrooms like we needed and wanted. So I ended up negotiating with him. Well, I'll tell you what, if you fix it to my spec, I will buy it off you at this price. And that's exactly what ended up happening. They came in, they did all the work. They completely finished the basement. And then we turned around and we were able to buy it off them, and we got it appraised, and everybody's happy. He walked away with the money he needed. We made our lift, as we call it, to cover our costs and pay our bills, and then make some money as well. And you know, that's how that works. So again, I negotiated that the actual homeowner was going to do the work on the project.
He built the house. So just to give you perspective of his skill set, it wasn't like somebody who works, you know, their full-time job and maybe does this in the evening. He's the builder. Yeah, it's not his first rodeo. So
another example of that, though, not to quite this extreme, is I just bought one in Sutherland where it was a couple, and they owned an up-down duplex and down suited house, whatever you want to call it, and they wanted to sell it, but the flooring was kind of ratched upstairs. And so what I negotiated is they bought the flooring and my team installed it. So literally we met halfway in the middle, right? I was like, I'm not going to go out and buy flooring, and you know, they had it, made sure it was there, and then I was able to just bring my team in, get it installed, and it's done, right? So again, everything is open to negotiations. Everything. I say this, Rochelle says this all the time. What does it hurt to ask?
Yeah, the worst you're gonna hear is no. Don't be emotional about it.
No, don't. I don't know how to get people trained on that. Don't make things emotional. Like when they're coming at you with emotion already, 2 emotions won't get nothing done. Never. It's never going to happen. Even an emotional person, unless they're really, really extreme, can't argue with logic, right? So if you're coming to the table and you're presenting actual, to some degree, numbers and facts, it's really hard for an emotional person to argue. And like I said, some are extreme, and then you know what? It's an energy thing, and it's not worth the energy. There are so many times we've gone in, or I've gone in, made an offer on a house, and my realtors will call me and go, okay, well, they didn't like the offer and they want us to pay this, and can you make that work? And I'm like, nope. And they're like, but I'm like, nope. I said, the person is emotional. They think they have something more than they really do. And that's fine. I don't need their house. So let it sit for 30 days. And I would say probably 7 out of 10 times, I come back and end up with the property at the price I want. Again, this is why we are buying properties in a market that is a buyer's market for the long-term wealth gain, okay? Doing this strategy would not work in a hardcore seller's market where it doesn't matter if there's no walls, it's being sold as a house and for double what it should be, right? That strategy won't work.
And
right?
again, though, if you're investing in that market and you're still paying stupid money on things that don't make sense,
Doesn't work.
give your head a shake. Go find a different strategy. So you always have to know your numbers. Now, I'm not saying that you can't find good deals in a seller's market. It's just different strategies.
Sure is.
There's tons of people who are wholesaling properties. They're finding off-market listings. They're, duplex conversions. There's other ways of doing things. But at the end of the day, the numbers have to make sense, and you have to make your numbers in the buy.
Yeah.
So if you are not a good negotiator, then maybe pair with a wholesaler, maybe pair with somebody who negotiates for a living, and make sure that that is their strength. The other thing too is when you're going to work with a realtor, make sure that they can negotiate, because
Tons of them can't.
no, like it's crazy. It's mind-boggling to me how many people we've had to kind of over the years be like, okay, this is how you're going to sell this deal. And so for us, we always like to give 2 offers. So one, like Alyssa said before, they can stay in the house, it would be this price point, or they can leave and it'll be this price point. So it's the same thing. So we'll buy it with the tenants in place for this price. If you remove the tenants, we'll buy it for this price, because we know that if we get stuck with the tenants, there's time that we're going to have to put in potentially getting rid of the tenants, dealing with the repairs that need to be done with the tenants in there. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, there's a price point for everything. And it's crazy. Again, another little nugget for negotiating. If you generally give people 2 options, they might absolutely hate both options, but I guarantee you they'll choose one.
It's true.
And think about it. You got kids. So your kids are having a bad day and they're like, I don't want to get dressed. You're like, okay, you know what? That's fine. You don't want to get dressed, but we need to leave the house right now. So why don't you pick the red shirt? I don't want to wear the red shirt. Okay, how about you pick the blue shirt? Maybe I like the blue shirt a little bit better, right? Or, there's different options, but they're not going to want to pick option A no matter what you tell them. We'll give them option B or C, or you know what? Let's just go naked. Like whatever, you know what I mean? Like there's always options, but it's just a matter of talking it through and saying, don't know what to tell you. There's option A, there's option B, or we walk away. It's all good.
And we can't emphasize enough how important the numbers are on a property. Like it truly is the most powerful thing, the purchase price that you buy a property for. Like what you buy it for, everything you do after that point is how you're going to make your money. And so it is your foundation, and that is why in your negotiation it is so important. And you hear over and over, make money in the buy. We see people all the time who are overpaying for a house. I was in one that is in Sutherland, and again yesterday it was shown to me, and we had been in it and it has foundation problems. Okay, and we said, we are not paying, we would pay you, but you're probably better to list because there is a chance that you'll get more. So we told them 180. Well, lo and behold, I was in this house again and somebody paid 200 for it. That's a 20 grand difference. Do you know how much work you can do to a foundation based on 20 grand? A lot, right? So again, that's just a prime. And I said to the realtor, I said, I've been in here and I need to know what this person paid for it, because I said, whatever it is, they paid too much. And when I showed the realtor the wall and the actual deflection happening, he was like, oh my, like that, like he's like, that's bad. And I said, right. And
so everybody runs their numbers differently.
Yep.
But for us, because we pay our investors such generous returns,
yep,
we have to make our margins, right? In order for us to make money, we have to make our margins.
Yep.
So if somebody's going to go in, they're going to do all the work themselves.
Different.
They're going to use their own money,
yep,
and they're going to do all the things. they can afford to pay more.
Sure can.
Because they don't need to pay out a big chunk of it to their investors and to their labor and all that other kind of stuff. So maybe that does, make sense for them because maybe they are a foundation repair specialist.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to judge. But at the end of the day, we're just not going to compete with those kind of numbers. And for us, I guarantee you, there's not as many people doing that can close in a week than there are doing what we're doing.
And that, again, that's the other negotiation thing is time. A lot of people, if it's vacant, they want it off their plate yesterday. Most people want it gone yesterday. If there's people in it, it changes things, right? So that's a big one to keep in the back of your mind is time frames. What is going to be a beneficial, not for you, for them? What is going to be a beneficial time frame for them? Because again, it's usually an easy one that you can work with. Right? So just a great one to keep in the back of your mind when you're negotiating. And again, can't emphasize enough, if you're both can agree to it on the piece of paper, it can be a thing.
Magic can happen.
Yeah, like it can be, we've done things like we've moved people. We've actually paid people to move them from one property to the other.
Yeah, and we've paid people's stamp deposits
Yep.
on the new place they were downsizing into to be
Yep.
able to rent it. We paid their first month's rent. Whatever makes financial sense.
Yep.
If that's what their pain point is, because they said, well, we don't have any money, but we need to move to go rent a place. We don't know what to do. Well, what if we pay for your rent? Huh? How would that work? Can you even do that? Yeah, we can do anything, right? And then the other side of it too is one time Alyssa was looking at a house. This was a funny story too, but I went to look at the house and I always just kind of like to ask people, and that one of the topics here was who gives the first number, right? And I always say whoever gives the first number loses. And so I literally do everything in my power to try and not give the first number. But sometimes they are like, what do you think it's worth? Blah, blah, blah. So I always try to give a really low number just to see where people are at. Because if you give a really low number, they're gonna be like, no, and then they're gonna give you their number, right? Common logic. And then you meet the odd, really stubborn person that's like, that was too low. I hate you now. But you know what? I'm like, go be a toddler in your corner. That's fine. Talk to me in 2 weeks, whatever. So at the end of the day, for the average person, I'm like, give me your number. They're like, no, la, la, la. So I went and looked at this one lady's house, and we already owned the house next door to it. This is how she knew we were buying houses, because we had given her a card or whatever. So I go look at it and I'm like, yeah. So she's saying she has 2 mortgages on it, didn't tell me price points and stuff. And I didn't pull title or anything. So I go in there and I'm like, oh yeah. Well, and I said, like, I can't remember what the number was, whatever, but I was like, oh, well, we'll pay whatever, maybe 160 or something. I was like, we could probably pay 160. And she was like, yeah, I'll take it. So in negotiations, you never want a big yes. If you get a big yes, it means you paid too much, or they're getting too much in the deal. So I was like, shit, abort. It gave too big a number. So I was like, well, you know what though? I'm really not great at buying houses. That's more Alyssa's strength. So she's out of town right now, but I better get her to come look at it, because then she can give you a real offer, like a real number, right? Because I think I don't know for sure, right? So this is totally not legit. A little white lie, I'll call it, gray area. But at that point, I was buying all the houses. But I was like, whatever. So yeah, so I send Alyssa, and I'm like, Alyssa, I'll meet you there. I'll go through the house with you. And then I ended up not being able to make the appointment. So Alyssa went in to look at the house. And so I was like, listen, you gotta ground it. You gotta grind her. Because I gave a big number. You gotta like get it down, right? So then,
and Rochelle and I have very different negotiation strategies. We usually get the same result, but just different ways.
And analyzing properties, totally different methods, but same numbers.
Yeah. So anyways, and so I get there, and of course I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to be the bitch.
She's gonna have to be the bad guy on this one. Usually I'll be bad guy.
So it's so funny. So I walk in and I'm like, how's it going? Like, I just literally very stoic, went through the house. I think I grunted 4 times. And by the time we got to the basement, not a word of a lie, it couldn't have been for our direction, a better situation, but the hot water tank had literally sprung a leak, like literally the bottom of the tank. By this time, the woman's like, what will you just give me for this house? And I said, I'm really going to have to go back and talk to Rochelle about this one. I don't know, after the hot water tank went, I don't know if we even want it. That was so bad. So anyways, so we left. And again, I don't want to put anybody into a position where they go backwards potentially on a property.
But she wouldn't give me her number.
She wouldn't give the
She
number.
would have saved so much time and energy. She would have just given me her damn number.
So anyways, I went back to Rochelle and told her what had happened. And then we ended up, I think we got it for 140 in the end.
Yeah, it was 20 grand below
Below.
what I had offered, but she was still walking away with 10K in the bank and her mortgage paid off. So it's not like she was getting nothing.
And the funny thing was, we not only negotiated that price point, but we actually put the hot water tank in immediately because she couldn't even afford to do it.
She was literally going to the gym to shower
Yeah.
because they had to turn the water.
So we went in because for us, it was no big deal to put that in. And she actually was one of the ones that stayed in the property. And actually, I think she stayed there for 2 or 3 months, rented it back from us. Again, another amazing negotiation strategy. We have had homeowners, they'll rent their own home because sometimes some of them need that money in the bank to make things happen for them in the future, right? And you can't fault people for that. So again, what does it matter if the homeowner's renting it off you or a tenant that you've had to go get off the street, right? Win, 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 win for everybody, right? So again, I think that's the biggest thing we're trying to get you guys to understand. Stop looking at negotiations like with blinders or in a box situation, and just start looking at it like it's my open world. It's anything.
It's so much bigger than just talking numbers.
Like you can negotiate their cat into the deal if you want. Like you can negotiate whatever you want.
I think we should
Furniture.
probably draw the line at people.
Yeah.
That would probably get a little
That might get dicey, but I'm just using that as an extreme example. But I bought a house, the one Avenue E. There was furniture in it. They were like wanted me. That was one of their things. They're like they didn't want to haul the furniture out of the basement, and I was like, so leave it. I don't care. They're like, will you pay me more? No, I don't want your furniture. I'm answering your problem in that you don't want to move it. That's the best I can offer you. Okay, fine. Yes, then we're good, right? Because I knew ultimately that was their pain point. They didn't have the ability to carry the furniture out of the basement. Win-win for everybody. Rochelle went and looked at it, and a bunch of it's being repurposed at properties into furnished rentals.
Yeah.
So
we're running out of time here. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any questions at all? Ask now or forever hold your peace.
there you go.
We're gonna go on a tour here. Do we talk about the numbers here or no?
I don't know them. You have
Yeah,
them? Okay, there you go.
Okay, so this property, again, negotiations, right? So this guy developed the entire base, but this was an interesting thing. He had actually like legally suited the property or intended to build basement suites in the house, but he never developed it. The basement was literally hollow and he wanted to suite these. So we actually put the furnace and hot water heater on the main. It was really bizarre. Anyway, long story short, that made no sense to us because in this neighborhood, if you have big houses like this with lots of traffic, you're going to have problems, people coming and going back and front and whatever. So we were like, this doesn't make sense. So we said, and Alyssa helped with the design. She was like, blow out stairs into the basement. So now the basement is all part of each unit. And so now we have 7 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms on both sides. So it's a massive house. We already have some furniture moved in and whatnot. But yeah, why don't you take them on a tour?
Sure, sounds good. Okay, so you can tell we were sitting kind of in the kitchen area. I'm just gonna flip this around, say hi, everybody. So on the other side over here, this used to be just living room, but you can see what Rochelle was talking about with we added stairs to the basement. It was such a small living area, it wasn't gonna gain you anything. And because of the size of the house, we ended up with 2 small living rooms in the basement. So it's gonna, but this seating area in the kitchen is definitely big enough for a good sized table and for everybody to hang out here that needs to. So this is going to be the common area. And then this is one of the bathrooms. I don't know, I don't think it matters. So just a half bath on the main floor. One of the things for our rooming houses or houses where we're, that we look for is lots of bathrooms. So here's an example of a bedroom. This was just, again, just a room. It was almost like a living room. And I was like, it's space that could be used for a bedroom. Ironically, see those 2 houses in the background? We own, we control those with investors too. So you can see we did new flooring, new paint. And this is what Rochelle was talking about, where the, you know, the furnace and hot water heaters and stuff are on the main floor. So back through here, we'll head upstairs. I can show you all the bedrooms up there. Again, these are not meant to be super pretty houses. These are meant to be functioning space for people to live in. And that's what these offer. So as we get up here, laundry, we have laundry for them to utilize. This is, again, you can see all the bedrooms, big property. You can tell I'm super tall. Thanks, Mark. Bathroom, 2 sinks, works for when you have lots of people. Yeah, big functioning spaces, another good sized bedroom. You can see it's going to be a nice space for people that have come out of programs or entering into programs where they're trying to correct their life. And I mean, there's such a need for that for housing and the affordability. And that's what we're offering. We heard there was a need. So, and sometimes it's easier if you can take your properties and work where there's a need for housing and turn around and make money. It's, you know, that's a win-win-win for everybody. So we'll show you the basement too, which is, so you can see it's a big property. Like this is a stairwell. You can hear me huffing and puffing. I'm out of shape. Right, you guys can, hey? I was just going to show them the basement quick, or unless you don't want me to. Basement's good. Okay. Yeah, this part is all new. That stuff I showed you was original. This was supposed to be. Thank you. So this was supposed to be the. Oh, I guess there's one on the bed. Sorry, there's one down here. This was supposed to be its own suite, and in the end, we knew it wasn't going to work to have this be a multi-unit in that style in this neighborhood. So you can see there's a small seating area here. You know, it'll end up with a little coffee table. And then again, the bedrooms, great size of bedroom. They're functionable, give everybody what they need. Same thing here, good and functionable. See, here's all we did for a closet. Really simple. Yeah, has the big windows. Absolutely, right? Nope, that one needs to be cleaned. We haven't finished the cleaning yet. As you can tell, it's still dusty and whatever. Here's the bathroom that we put in for the basement. So again, really good functional spaces to allow people that are going through the same programs. And then back here, you can see that's the entrance. Had we suited it, it would have had the suite there. And you can see this is a really good, again, living room space for people to, you know, they have a friend or a family member come to visit. They've got somewhere to sit that isn't just their bedroom, right? Okay. So yeah, so now they said they would like to head to the other side because, you know, there's 2 of these, believe it or not. It's a duplex. And then there's another property potentially we're going to try and make it to. Where are we headed now? Next door? Okay. I think we're going there because there's people working. So here's a cool thing. We have, we talk about fences all the time. So this is an example of one of the fences we built. Had an all new eaves troughing put on this property. You can see the puddle, how the water runs away from the property. People, you need to work with your grading and eaves troughing to save the longevity of your properties. Can't say it enough. So I'm gonna go out to the street here to show you this property, how big it is. I think you can see that. So we weren't kidding when we said it's a ginormous duplex. Oh, now we're gonna catch people working. Hey guys, how's it going? Not too bad. So the other side, they're finishing up some of the electrical things, and then it'll be all pretty much ready to go too. So, oh, are you doing air conditioning? See, so we were having issues with humidity. Wasn't it humidity buildup? Because the houses are so well airtight, And so we had two options. We could either put in a dehumidifier or air conditioning to solve the problem. We went, well, why not? If this is going to be people needing housing, why wouldn't we give them air conditioning? So here you go. It's literally a mirror image of the other side that we were in. So you can see main floor, the back bedroom, the kitchen. We removed or added the stairs so you can go into the basement. So again, very simple, very straightforward lines. We use the same baseboards, same paint color, keep it simple and clean. That's what's consistent for our rental properties. Where else do you want to go, Miss Ashley, or are we done?
Well, I think we're done, but
Okay.
if they're still working, we've got more cucumbers down the street if you wanted to take them off. But
So apparently we're buying up this block, which is what typically happens. And our team is also working further down, but I think they're gone. His van is gone. Okay, well, that's okay. Well, I'm sure we've shown you enough for today. Again, this is a prime example of a negotiation that both parties needed things and wanted things. And it just came down to listening to what each one wanted, right? And making it happen. So I think that gets lost for a lot of people. They just want to pull out that offer to purchase and just go, here's what I'm going to buy it off you for. And that doesn't always work. Right, Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, you can't just throw money at a situation all the time, guys. People have feelings and apparently they care about shit. I don't know. So yeah, I am not a nurturer. But no, for me, it's always just about business. And at the end of the day, people have problems. And if you can be a problem solver and you bring people solutions, there's money in that. And so if you can hone in that skill, and I mean, look at people who are wholesaling full time too. That's all they're doing. They don't even have the money. They're going in and they're providing solutions for all parties involved. They're finding buyers who are looking for properties. They're finding sellers who want to get rid of properties, and boom, they're marrying those deals together, right? So at the end of the day, become a problem solver, and there's money in that. It can be very lucrative. So yeah, good luck with negotiations. And if you guys have any specific tough situations, Alyssa and I are always, answering phones. Yeah, we'd love to be able to provide some value. And for us, at the end of the day, win-win situations. That's what we're always trying to provide. If it's going to be a win-lose, the negotiation's just not fair.
You know what else? If it's always the other person losing, you get a name. And you know what ends up happening? That gets around. And it doesn't matter how big the city is. The real estate world is a small world. And it'll get around.
I'd rather get the reputation for being, balls to the wall, stuff happening, movers and shakers, and we are closers. So the other thing is, we've never put an offer on a property that we didn't close on. So watch yourself if you're going around putting offers, locking up properties, and then not closing on anything, because nobody will trust you, and you'll become a joke and a laughing stock of your city. So watch yourself. So thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next episode on Thursday, August 20th. At 1 p.m. Central Time. So follow us on social media for more information about that and where to register if you want to be on the Zoom call. And I'm sure we'll send out an email. So yeah, thank you guys for staying with us the whole hour. We appreciate you, and stay epic.
Just turn it around. Everybody knows who you guys are now.